Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Three Brain Cells, and the host between Taorminas on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the Local Voice on SoundCloud and those watching Orion Television. Wow, I can't believe today is one of the final days of 2024 as we head into 2025. A lot to look at. We've just had the we're in the final day of the Motor City Roundball Classic. A lot of the girls' classics are complete, and also we got an interesting story here breaking out of Rochester Adams surrounding a transfer situation over there. We're gonna break that down and get my thoughts on that on this week's edition here of the podcast. So, without further ado, let's start off with our main story here. Of course, as we end 2024, an interesting storyline occurred. Obviously, over at Adams, the Langdon brothers, Colin and Clark Langdon, played at Adams about 9 days ago. And then we find out they're enrolled at University of Detroit Jesuit, and are now effectively playing over there. So it's kind of it's an interesting storyline considering we have a thing called the MHA transfer rule here. And considering they played a couple games for Adams, and then now you look at with them, now they're at UD Jesuit playing for Coach Pat Donnelly. They played in their game at the Motor City Roundball Classic against Detroit Old Redford. Ended up winning that game 74-66. Colin Langdon had 10 points for UD Jesuit in that game. So, but the main story here, and I got a lot of questions when I look at the story here of what's been going on. Obviously, I noticed that there was some turmoil over at Adams, where, there was some unrest over there, despite, Adams' situation, playing in the red, getting off to a good start, and then having some really questionable losses. But when I look at this came out of nowhere. This came out of, seeing these two brothers leave, especially with the fact that they came into the state from Texas, and now they're leaving again. So now, why do I have a thought process about this? Why? It's pretty simple. When you look at the expectation for Adams coming into the year, obviously they lost their two best players. Now you're looking at a player like Trent Lagarde. You got Luke Marshall. But now when you look at the Langdon brothers, they were expected to make a big role this year for Coach Isaiah Novak's team. Unfortunately, it has not worked out. And albeit with the transfer. And obviously, you look at parents, they get involved in this. And, I think that's pretty much kind of what happened over here surrounding what happened with the Adams situation. But we had this thing called the transfer rule. We have this thing where, you have to sit out a year if it's deemed athletically motivated. If you move in new residents, you can play right away. And basically here, in this case, I talked to a friend of a family member of mine whose son went to UD Jesuit, and he lives in Dearborn. And I asked him as a boarding school, and he told me no, it's not. So I went and read the MHA rulebook, and it was a pretty interesting read. And I looked at the situation surrounding it, and this is kind of like almost a similar situation to what happened 2 years ago with two kids from Orchard Lake St. Mary's who transferred into that school. Was in a boarding school. Was on campus, and they weren't allowed to play. They played in the Motor City Round Ball, but they couldn't play the rest of the year because of the transfer rule, because they found out their transfer was athletically motivated. When I look at this transfer, this has all the clearings of an athletically motivated transfer. It clearly does, because, you can't say academics. Obviously, Rochester Adams is one of the best academic schools in the state. Residency, you can't really say that. So, why are they at UOD Jesuit for? Whereas, this looks like it's a clear, athletically motivated transfer. It looks like it. And obviously, Stu Carlton of the D Zone, did a really nice job, tweeting it out on X, and I'm going like, what's going on here? And it was shocking to see that both Langdon brothers transferred out of Adams, considering 9 days ago, they played at Adams. And now they played a game for UD Jesuit. So now it comes to the MHA's case is, what defines the transfer rule? We just had this happen a couple years ago with Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We had this a couple years ago with Thomas Kittier. When it looks like I get the residency issue. I get the residency. If you move in district, if you move to a new, if you move in district, you should be eligible. But in this case here, I don't know. Usually the rules does state you have to sit out a year if it's an athletically motivated transfer. And by the looks of this, it looks like this is it. It looks like clearly. And I read all the social media posts. I know Mitten Recruit very well. He basically said that this was like the transfer portal. Since when did the MHA decide to go with the transfer portal? Since when did you know what I mean? When did they go with the transfer portal? There's rules in place here. There's rules in place that surrounds this situation. And, by the looks of it, now I don't know the details. I don't know all the paperwork and all that. But it looks like to me if the Langdon brothers, they played a couple games for Adams. Now they're playing at UD Jesuit. They should be falling right in line with the MHA transfer rule. And to me, it looks like this is clearly an athletically motivated transfer. It clearly is. And if that's the case, then they should sit out the entire season. And, because we've had this situation happen at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We've had this situation happen with Clarkston. If we're just saying, okay, we're going to let these guys play, then what's the MHA there for? What is the MHA there for? Because when you look at the situation that's been ongoing here, you look at with the Catholic League, they've been getting away with this for a long time now. But, this is clear as day. It looks to be like it's an athletically motivated transfer. It looks like it. And they should sit out the entire year. They should. Now, what I've heard over at Adams is, I've been hearing a lot of rumblings, you know what I mean? But with Adams, losing both brothers is a big loss for Coach Isaiah Novak. I mean, it's a big loss. Don't get me wrong. Puts a lot more pressure on Luke Marcial and Trent Lagarde. It puts a lot more pressure on them. But what helps Adams is they got program strength. So, in the situation with Adams is they're in the red. They're in the red. And you're playing against the likes of Clarkston. You're playing the likes of North Farmington. You got Groves and West Bloomfield are in there. And then you have Ferndale in there. I mean, it's not an easy division at all. It really isn't. So for them to exit stage right, it's a tough blow. But, you know, when you look at the postseason side of things, it doesn't really change anything come postseason-wise for them, especially in their district, because you look at Adams, they got Stony Creek's in there, Rochester's in there, Romeo and Eisenhower and Utica. I'm not sold on Utica. I'm not sold on Eisenhower, and I'm not sold on Romeo. I watched Romeo play against Lakeview, against Lakeland, and they did not look very good at all. I mean, Mark Cushionberry's team is struggling big time. Eisenhower, they're going through a transition period. It's got to happen during the year. Utica had a big year. Really they're struggling a little bit. Then you look at the OA schools. You look at Rochester. Not having Jake Tandy's really hurt this team. Max Mull is the real deal. He's a phenomenal athlete. Phenomenal player. But they need Jake Tandy back. And I expect him back for the end of the year. I expect him back. I mean, and then there's Stony Creek. And Stony Creek, they've been playing much better. They've been playing a lot better basketball. They've been, you know, obviously, talked about Stony Creek. So that district's still in play despite Adams losing in the regular season to Stony Creek. I mean, that district for Adams is still in play. So I think they're going to be fine. I really do. But with the Langdon case, to me, it clearly, I mean, like, if I was the MHA right now, I would call UD Jesuit and say, look, you know, you played games for Adams already this year. Now you transferred into UD Jesuit. I mean, academics, residency. It's clearly athletically motivated. I would say, you know what I mean? You know, following the athletic transfer rule, the MHA transfer rule, should sit out the year. Should sit out the rest of the season. I mean, it's happened 2 years ago with Orchard Lake St. Mary's. And I remember that issue extremely well. So that's really where I am with the Langdons is, you know, when you look at the eligibility issue, you look at, you know, the rule book. And I read the rule book at least 10 times. And I need to know where the evidence is, you know, before, you know what I mean, saying that both Langdons can play. Because to me, it looks like, and if the MHA just doesn't crack down, then there's a problem in Lansing. And I really think if they don't do anything and let these two play, then I think there's a serious problem in Lansing. I mean, and that's just honesty. That's just honesty right there. So we'll see what happens. Not going to go too much into it, considering what's been going on. We're going to focus a lot on Adams, because Adams is in the OAA. UD Jesuit, obviously, in the Catholic League. So we'll see what happens there. I think a lot of people are going to keep a really close eye on this story. But, you know, when you look at the situation that the Langdon family did to Adams, exiting stage right, going to UD Jesuit, I just feel bad for Coach Isaiah Novak, the players over there. But it also gives gives the kids who are on the lower levels on Adams' bench an opportunity to make an impact for themselves. So, so really there is an opportunity there for the Highlanders, especially those playing on the bench. Opportunity to play in the starting lineup. You got two proven players there, and Luke Martial and Trent Lagarde. So there is an opportunity there that awaits for whoever steps in the role of having to replace both brothers. But my take on the whole thing there at Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit, it's just something's got to get done when it comes to handling that issue surrounding the Langdon situation over there at with that transfer. So, something's got to get done over there. I'd be surprised if nothing happened. I'd be disappointed if nothing happened. But I just think honestly, they're in line with the MHC with the transfer rule, and it clearly looks like this is an athletically motivated transfer when I look at it. So we'll see what happens. Let's look at the classics. Obviously, the North Farmington Holiday Extravaganza. A lot of success for some of the OAA teams there. Troy did not look as good against Belleville. They ended up losing that one 68-47. For Troy, it's just, Mason Parker can do everything he can. He does everything he can for them. He just needs a Robin. That's really what the issue is for Troy. Is who's that second guy that steps up besides Mason Parker? He can take over a game himself. He had 35 against Lake Orion. So when I look at Troy heading into 2025, they just got to find a solution. Who's going to be that Robin to Mason's Batman? That's really the key there when you look at Troy's situation. But I think a team that a lot of people got to start paying attention to now is Farmington. When I look at the Falcons, Farmington, they're right now sitting at 7-2. Had a really tough loss to North Farmington. Real questionable loss to Seaholm. But this is a team that plays team ball. They play team ball. And when you look at what Coach Byron Johnson inherited, you had a star player who then transferred out. There were several players that transferred out. But when you look at this team, you look at players like Randy Rice, Anthony Bailey. They're playing the ultimate team ball game. And I'll tell you what, team ball is winning basketball. That's how I look at it with Farmington. That's what makes them dangerous. Is when you play team ball, everybody's a threat out there. And that is the most dangerous when you look at them. That's the most dangerous when you look at it. And it's a good way for Coach Byron Johnson because you play team ball. You're playing team ball. Everybody's sharing in the action. They don't care. They don't have a true star player. And that really is a good sign. When you don't have a star player, when you have at least anybody can beat you on any given night. And for Farmington, that's what makes them the most dangerous, is you don't know who's going to have a big game. You don't know. You look at Farmington's lineup, you know what I mean? They got at least 8, 9 guys who can beat you. That tells you something right there. And when you look at the district they're in come postseason time, I think they're the greatest threat to North Farmington. I think Farmington would love another crack at North Farmington. That'd be a heck of a game. I think it'll be really interesting. But Farmington, I love the way that this team is playing. I love the way that they play team ball. They play They play with a chip on their shoulder, nothing to lose. And when you look at that division in the white, yes, you got Oxford, you got Lake Orion in there. Farmington, I think right now, looks to be the third best team in that division. Now, a lot of people in Troy would say, wait a minute, what about us here? We got Mesa Park. But Farmington's weakness is, you look at it is you don't know what to expect with them. I mean, you have a lot of good with them, but there's also some bad. You got to look at the Seaholm game. Perfect example of that. Now, I got to credit Seaholm for that. But, there's some times where when shots don't fall, you know what I mean, tend to struggle a little bit. So, with Farmington, I think they're a team that, they're a scary group. And I love the direction that Coach Byron Johnson has them going. I really do. And that says a lot when you look at where Farmington was 2 years ago, before Johnson got there. Inherited a team that was coming off, that was in a really dark place. He's gotten them right back. He brought them back. And he's built a program over there. He's done a wonderful job of program strength. He's got a lot of proven young talent on that team. That says a lot to what Coach Johnson's done over at Farmington. And I commend him for that. I do. And we look at other teams there. Ferndale's another one I gotta speak about. Ferndale's had some really tough losses. Really, really tough losses. I mean, Ferndale's a team that relies a lot on Enid Vineyard. He's a good player. Really good player. I just still cannot understand how this team lost to Romulus Summit Academy. Basically, they were down 5 most games, came back, took the lead, took a 4-point lead late, and then gave it away late on their home floor. Lost 54-52. I just can't figure this team out. I just can't figure it out. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But playing a tough competition, that helps you. But you're in a district of Warren Lincoln, and that could be a problem. That could be a serious problem. Albeit Warren Lincoln right now is injured right now. But Ferndale, they got to at least, they've won 2 of these games. But they've got to get it turned around quick. They really do. Team I'm trying to figure out still is Avondale. I'm still trying to figure out how they only scored 26 points against Warren Fitzgerald. I'm trying to figure that out. I mean, when I looked at that score, and it took me a while to get that score, and I looked at it, it said 48-26 to Warren Fitzgerald. Warren Fitzgerald beat Avondale at North Farmington. I thought to myself, okay, is it the gym there at North Farmington? Because I get it. That's a tough place to shoot. I get it. It's a really tough place to shoot. But to be held to 26 points, when you have proven shooters on that team, it was shocking. Mind-boggling. I asked myself that question. What happened? What happened? I don't know what to say. I really don't. But that's a glaring weakness with Avondale. Is when they don't shoot well, that's what happens. West Bluefield. Good win over at the Mitten Recruit Classic over there. Good win there for them. Being a very good centerline team, 71-59. Curtis Britton had a nice game. He had a nice game. West Bluefield's going to be a very interesting team to watch. They're really interesting. Because still, I'm scared about this team defensively. I am scared about this team defensively. Offensively, they can put points in bunches. But I'm scared about this team defensively. So we'll see how they go. Pontiac. Pontiac had an incredible game against Farmington. Tough loss in that 85-71. 71 points. I think a lot of that's J.J. Claudio. I mean, the coach DeJuan Washington's he's done a nice job in his first year. He wasn't supposed to be the coach before the start of the year, though. I mean, but he's done a nice job with Pontiac. He's really done a nice job with them. When I look at Rochester, as I mentioned with Rochester in the Adams segment, not having Jake Tandy is a big deal for this team. I hope Tandy gets better soon. I really do. Because I know his brothers at Rochester, they need him. Max Moe had a heck of a game. 22 points. Against Redford Thurston. Redford Thurston's a very interesting team. They're an interesting team to figure out. Really are. But Rochester, they got to get Tandy back. Once they get Tandy back, I think they're whole. I really do. Because something's missing. Because if Tandy doesn't play, it puts a lot of pressure on Max. And we saw how that came out against Redford Thurston. Harper Woods had a nice win the other night against Fraser. I'm still trying to figure this team out. Still trying to figure them out. I still think when I look at Harper Woods, they had a nice game. I mean, they're fresh. I got to remember. They had a nice win against Fraser, having a bounce back after losing 4 straight games. So Harper Woods right now, getting in the win column for Coach Tawan Porter heading into 2025. Speaking of Tawan, let's talk about his brother's team, Terrence over at A&T. Rough 52-46 loss to in overtime to Detroit University Prep. And then they had to go to Lincoln Park and just got absolutely devoured 61-37 by the Rail Splitters. I'm just going like, what happened? What happened there? What happened? It's kind of hard for me to figure them out. It really is. Really is. Then you look at Troy Athens. Troy Athens, I really like where this Red Hawk team is right now. 2-1 in their last 3 games. Had a good win against Waterford Kettering. Coach Mitchell Versino's done a really nice job with that team. Started a 1-3-1 zone defense. Really done a really nice job. And especially holding a Waterford Kettering team who scored 68 against Detroit Central the game prior, holding them to 45 points. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So I got to give them props there. I really got to give the Red Hawks props there. 2-1 their last 3 games. That's good. That's winning basketball right there. That really is. Props to Coach Versino over there at Troy Athens. Props to them. And then you look at, I know Groves plays against Detroit. They play. I know they play at River Rouge. They play Rouge. Be an interesting game. Should be a really interesting game. I know we got several teams that are playing on that Monday, final day of the Motor City Roundball. So we'll talk about that in a couple. Talk about that. Then we got Clarkston. When I look at the Wolves, didn't look good in the second quarter. It was 19-19 at halftime against Wyoming Godwin Heights. They got out to a 13-5 start in the first quarter. Then I don't know what happened that second quarter. Third quarter became a street fight. Fourth quarter, Clarkson pulled away. So, for Coach Jim Wasilic, I'm trying to figure this Clarkson team out. if it's the second quarter Clarkson team, that team's in trouble. I know they were coming off a really tough loss to UD Jesuit over at the on their home floor in the D-Zone Showcase. Grove, same thing, losing to Detroit Martin Luther King at their own place. So, kind of, Clarkson and Groves are kind of like in that even-Steven approach when I look at it. Now, albeit, when we look at talent-wise, I would have to give it to Groves there. But Clarkson and Groves are eerily similar right now. Eerily. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Ferndale's in a tough spot. West Bloomfield's in a tough spot. Adams is in a tough spot. So when you look at the red right now, and I forgot to mention Bloomfield Hills. I mean, Bloomfield Hills, we'll talk about them in a minute. But when I look at the red right now, and then you have North Farmington's in a really interesting place right now. And they're coming off of a good win against Chicago Thornton. So when I look at the red right now, I would have to say it's Groves, then Clarkston. Then I would say Avondale. Avondale, for me, I just can't figure Avondale out, especially what happened in their game against Warren Fitzgerald. I mean, like, if this team shoots well, if this team performs well, they're a dangerous team. If they have a game where they have only 26 points against Warren Fitzgerald, that could be a problem. Considering you have proven players like Jacoby Loris, got Jordan Bush on there. You got Clayton's on there. You got Justin Sykes on that team. Avondale's a weird team right now to figure out. Really weird team. I can't figure them out right now. I really can't. So, I would say right now the third best team in there, I would have to say Ferndale barely, then West Bloomfield, and Avondale, then Adams. So, that's my take on the red right now, where I see it right now, heading into 2025. The blue, I still think Bloomfield Hills is the best team in this division, despite their 3-game losing streak. They had a loss on a buzzer beater to Grosse Pointe South, and then they lost to South Lyon East. And that was prior to losing to Royal Oak. DeRon Mason's really been the guy over there. Really has been. Bottom line is, when I look at Bloomfield Hills, I think Bloomfield Hills, to me, is still the team to beat in the blue, despite their losing streak. And then you look at a team like Berkeley. Berkeley's coming off a win against American International Academy, where they needed that in the worst way possible. Ferndale University is doing better. They're doing well right now. Berkeley, I still got questions with Berkeley. Coach Joe Thurman's team, I got questions. Royal Oak's an interesting team. I'm curious to see how 2025 looks for Royal Oak, because Royal Oak's got a history here. Strong starts, rough finishes. Can Coach Aaron Smith turn that around? He's got a chance to. I think he's starting to Pistonize the Ravens a little bit, because I noticed in their intros, it's like the Pistons intro. I know he works with the Pistons. I know he's the he's on the scores table. So I know that's what I'm trying to say, like trying to Pistonize the Ravens. So it's interesting. Really interesting. Rochester, Stony Creek, we talked about them. Pontiac, we talked about them. So when I look at the blue right now, I still think Bloomfield Hills is the best team, followed by Pontiac, Rochester, and Stony Creek. Royal Oak, and Ferndale U. Then Berkeley. And that's my take on that division in the blue. And then you look at the white. I would have to say, right now, I would say Lake Orion right now. Then Oxford. Then I put Farmington in that conversation. And Now, the reason why I say Lake Orion over Oxford is you look at the schedule Lake Orion's played, you look at the schedule Oxford's played. Oxford, obviously, a senior-heavy team, veteran team, led, of course, by Jake Champagne. Luke Stelfen's played well. Noah Mauser's played well. Brandon Elling's really stepped up for Coach Joe Fedorchik. Lake Orion's been virtually injury-riddled, but this team still finds a way, despite playing a murder's row with schedule. When you look at the teams they've had to play, when you're playing the likes of, play McCanton, Novi, Clarkston, Macomb, Dakota, Adams, that's not an easy slate at all. Really is not. For Coach Jose Andradas, that is not an easy slate. We head into the games Friday. That should be really interesting. Lake Orion Oxford's really interesting. Troy Farmington is really interesting. Of course, in the red, you got Clarkson taking on North Farmington. That could be a fun game. You got some really good games out there. Blue, you also got some good games out there, too. So, but when I look at the white right now, I would say Lake Orion, Oxford, Farmington. I would say right now, with the way Troy Athens is playing, I had to put them over Troy. Then Seaholm, then Oak Park, and then Harper Woods. So, really, that is what I'm looking at right now in the boys as we head into 2025. A lot of questions still with Harper Woods. A lot of questions with Oak Park, despite them only playing 3 games. So there's a lot of questions when I look at these teams, and I think that's something to really, really watch for as we head into the new year. Is question's going to be is how are you going to get yourself ready for the postseason? And I think really right now, I think when you look at the top 23, I did make some updates on it. So if you want to look at that, I know there's a couple games on today, particularly in the Motor City Roundball. If you go on the blog, if you're X, that means they're playing. But I will have the official top 23 will be out by the end of the night on Monday night. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how everything goes. So we'll see how it goes. Then let's look at the girls' game. I mean, obviously, when you look at girls' basketball, not a lot of teams are playing in a lot of classics. I know Clarkston's got a game against Detroit Country Day playing on Monday night, which that should be a really interesting game because, when you look at the Wolves and you say to yourself, okay, they played a tough non-conference, and they have. And obviously, you look at players like Brooklyn Colbert, Eliana Roback, you got Elia Munger, and then they got a nice blend of youth. You got Ellery Hernandez on that team. I mean, Coach Aaron Goodnow's got a nice team. He's got a really, really nice team. I mean, he really does. They'll be tested against Detroit Country Day. I mean, I'll talk about Country Day in a minute because for them, I think they've got that Ferndale thing figured out. I think they got it figured out. When I look at, that should be a good game. It should be a really good test to see where Clarkson's at, especially hanging the league play. Obviously, you look at, the rest of the league, they're all on break. We don't know what's going on with the Harper Woods situation. Keeping an eye on that. See if they get back into action. I know they got a game coming up on the 4th. So that's something to really keep an eye on with them. And then you look at the teams that did play in the Classics. West Bloomfield playing the Motor City Roundball Classic over at Ferndale. Knocked off a good Girls Points Out team behind 28 points from Sheridan Beale. I mean, when I look at the Lakers and of Coach Darren McAllister's team, obviously losing all that talent that they did last year. When you lose the Davis sisters, Destiny Washington, Kendall Hendricks, you know you're going to take some lumps early. You know you're going to take lumps early. Obviously, everybody trying to figure out roles, and then to make it worse, you're playing a really tough schedule. So, if you're West Bloomfield, you know what I mean? The record looks very deceiving, because it is. I mean, West Bloomfield's a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're a good team. But I do got some concerns when I look at the Lakers. I mean, Sharon Beal's going to have to score at least maybe 20, 25 a night for West Bloomfield to have a chance. I know they got London Hall on that team. She's a good player. They have the Gamble sisters. I like them a lot. But when I look at the key for West Bloomfield, it's obviously Sheridan Beal. It really is. And I really like, where this Laker team is at. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at other teams around in this division. You look at with Lake Orion. You look at Lake Orion's got Izzy Walensky and Charlotte Peplowski. They're going to have to do well every night for Lake Orion to be in games. Oxford, obviously, with Sophia Robb, Allison Huff-Sedler, and Mia Champagne. Stony Creek, if the Avash sisters, Merrick Schlauback, they're going to have to play well night in, night out for Stony Creek to have a chance. Clarkson, obviously, with Brooklyn Colbert, Eliana Roback. Ferndale, I'm going to leave there as their own separate topic because I got to talk about them in a minute here. But for West Bloomfield, I think they're fine. I think this is a team that, once they figure out what they are identity-wise, I think they're going to make some noise. When I look at that district they're in, staring Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the face, that's not easy. But what helps you is you got home court. That's what helps them. So when I look at the Lakers, I think they're going to be fine. I am concerned about program strength with West Bloomfield going forward. I am really, really concerned about them program strength-wise going forward. So, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. But West Bloomfield right now, they're going to be fine. They're playing much better as a team. They're playing winning basketball. I mean, they had a good win the other night against Grosse Pointe South at the round ball. I mean, the Lakers, I'm not pressing the panic button on them. I'm saying patience. Now, a team I'm pressing the panic button on is Ferndale. Here's why I'm pressing the panic button. When you look at the team Ferndale has, it's an AU-type system that they run over there. It really is. Only have 9 players. That's not easy. Now, yes, all 9 players are very good. Don't get me wrong. But when the schedule is difficult and you're losing games, that's a morale killer for you. That is an absolute morale killer. I get why Coach Keith Paris wants to view his schedule around Coach Juan Rickman's schedule. We all know Coach Rickman, obviously, is the athletic director, but also the boys basketball coach at Ferndale. Plays a tough schedule. Plays a really tough schedule. The problem with the girls' team is program strength is a big problem over there at Ferndale. It is a big problem. And I said this before the season. When I interviewed Coach Paris, I said this before the season. How are you addressing the program strength situation? How are you addressing it? Because it's a big jump when you're going from middle school to play varsity. It's a big jump. And you look at what's going on with Ferndale, and you look at, of course, they played against Birmingham Detroit Country Day recently. They got whooped. They got destroyed. And the reason why that's significant It's pretty simple. Because Ferndale might see them again in regionals. They might see them again. And I'm obviously talking about the goals for Ferndale this year. They want to win it all. They want to win it all. The problem for Ferndale is your regional is brutal. You got Detroit Country Day, could be in there. And you didn't look very good against them. CC Orion had a big night against them. 23 points. Over at Wayne Memorial. And yeah, so when I look at this situation, and I read Ferndale's tweet, it's a good competition except for us. And I knew there were warning signs coming into the year for this team. They had a nice win the other night against Ypsilanti Arbor Prep, 37-28. Had a nice win there. They've had some tough losses. Lost by 2 to Seaholm. Lost by 4 to Seaholm. Lost by 2 to Detroit Mumford, 46-44. They've lost a lot of close games, and that sometimes when you lose a lot of those close games, it has a ripple effect on you. It really does. So there's a lot of questions with Ferndale heading in 2025. The big concern for them is, the key for them is to stay healthy. They have to stay healthy. They can't afford injuries. They cannot afford injuries. Because if they do get injured, if they're injury-riddled, that could spell doom. And this is where my biggest concern comes in with Ferndale. Program strength has been my biggest concern with Ferndale when it comes to injuries, when it comes to mental mindset, mental psyche. There's so many things that I worry about with this team. You know, when they made the jump 3 divisions, I get they want to play the best competition. And I get it's going to help them come postseason time. But when you got to go up against teams that have double or triple your size, I mean, when you look at program strength-wise, Lake Orion's got 3 programs. Oxford's got 3 programs. Clarkson's got 3 programs. West Bloomfield's got 3 programs. Stony Creek's got 2 programs. That's not an easy slate. That's not easy. So my challenge to Coach Paris is this. Next offseason, you got to recruit the school. You got to recruit your school and see how many kids can get out and play basketball. Because when you look at it from a program strength perspective, having one team doesn't always fly. And especially in a division like the Red, you know, you also got to stay healthy. Because if you don't stay healthy and you have injuries, because injuries happen. Injuries even happen to really good teams. But if you're Ferndale's case and if one of your top players gets hurt, you're in a lot of trouble. That's really what it is. I know it's a hard truth. It is the hard truth. But that is the warning signs that Ferndale has right now. And you're playing a tough schedule. It'll get you better, yes. But when you look at from a mental standpoint, that's not a good sign. Especially because you got to do a 3-0 start. That's great. Then you lost 4 straight. Then you lost then you're 1-4 in your last 5 games. Take that back on that. You're 1-4 in your last 5. That kind of tells you something. Now, yes, the competition's been tough. I get it. But when I look at, there are just some serious, serious warning signs when I look at Ferndale. Yes, they're a good team. Yes, they're a very good team. But you got to wonder, injuries happen. Injuries happen. And you're in a division like the Red, that's a really physical league. You're going up against the likes of Clarkston, Lake Orion, Oxford, Stony Creek, West Bloomfield. I mean, that's not an easy slate at all. It's not easy. So, Ferndale has to address the numbers. They have to address the numbers. I've been saying this for about 2 months now. That even when Ferndale decided to make the jump to the Red, when they decide to make the move to the Red, how are the numbers going to look? How are the numbers? That's the big question. That's the big question. I'll be very curious to see what happens with Ferndale. Really, really curious. See how they do. We'll see how they do. But there's a lot of question marks when I look at the Eagles. A lot of questions. So when I look at the girls' basketball docket, obviously, you know, you look at the Red. West Bloomfield, I still think it's the best team in the division, but Clarkston will have a case. I think Lake Orion could have a case. Stony Creek could have a case. Oxford could have a case. Ferndale could have a case. It depends. It wouldn't surprise me in that division. Whoever wins that division might have at least 3 or 4 losses. That's how tough and how balanced that division is. We'll see how that division goes, but that's what I'm looking at heading in 2025. The balance of the Red, that could be really interesting. The White, there's a reason why I have Seaholm right now as the best team in the league. I have Seaholm number 1 in the top 23. I have Seaholm, obviously the best team in the White right now. I'm telling you, Seaholm's got a team. They got a team. They got experience. They got kids who are having fun. They're finding ways to win. If you're Coach Chris Manchester, you got to be very happy. And I think he's going to be very happy. You look at that district coming up, the other game by Birmingham Marion, they look beatable. They look beatable. But I really like where Seaholm's at right now. Royal Oak, I can't figure Royal Oak out. I can't figure Troy out, especially with the injury of Diamond Prince. Now, there was some positive notes with Diamond Prince. I looked at some pictures on X. You know, she is standing, which is good. That's a good sign. Question is, when will she get back? That's the big question. Because it looks like to me that knee injury she has is not a season ender. It looks like it. I mean, we'll see with Troy. We're going to see with them. Groves, they're building something over there. I mean, JC Roy and figure the other one out. I mean, but Groves is building something over there. Bloomfield Hills, obviously, they're going to be as good as Brianna Young takes them. Gold, obviously, Farmington's still the favorite there. Followed by, I would say right now, I like where Ferndale U's at right now. They've more than doubled their win total. Last year they didn't win a game. They got 4 wins right now. Oak Park, they're an interesting team. And then Pontiac, they're also really interesting right now. And then the Blue, you look at the Blue, you know, that division's really interesting. Avondale, I still think, is a team to beat in that division. Considering, you know, they're they're improved, as long as they can stay healthy. Health's going to be the key for Coach Roy Christman. Because if they're not healthy, you saw what happened last year. They struggle. Then you look at Troy Athens has been a very interesting team. Obviously, Alex Link there. They got others on that team for Coach J.C. Club. They've done well. They've done really well. They got a freshman. I think there's a couple young players I like over there at Athens. I think they can make some noise. I mean, winning against Troy was huge for them. And I don't know what happened to them against Eisenhower. Now, you get Eisenhower as a much different team now. They're going to be a scary team. If I'm Stony Creek, Columbus Williams, or if I'm Rochester, or Coach Andy Toppy, obviously with Alice Max, there's some warning signs over there with Eisenhower. Serious warning signs. I would be very careful if I'm any of the Rochester schools, because you got Ike in your district, so I'd be really, really careful if I'm them. Rochester in the white, I think they can make some noise, despite their struggles, but Alice Max have to carry them. Then you have in the blue, I mentioned Avondale. Berkeley, I think, is the second best team in that division. Like I said, the question for me is the style of play. Can they adjust to the style? That's the question I have with Berkeley. North Farmington, they're a very young team. They had a nice one against Wall Lake Central before going on the break. So if you're Coach Michael Allen, you just got to be patient. Harper Woods, we don't know what's going on with that situation. Adams, I'm telling you, Adams has earned the nickname the most dangerous team in the league. I really think they are. The way that they're playing without Faye Solis, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal. And then of course our last but not least, I think there's one more team I'm trying to remember, but when I look at the division right now, I would say Avondale, Berkeley. Oh no, A&T. A&T. I think for A&T, they're very good offensively. They're extremely good offensively. It's the other side of the ball is what I'm worried about with A&T. Defensively, this team scares me. You can ask West Bloomfield that question. I always think to myself, okay, A&T for real, A&T for real. Then I look at the West Bloomfield score. And that tells me a lot. Defensively scares me with A&T. That's really where the issue is with A&T. Is you can be an offensive juggernaut, but you got to have the defense. If you have the defense, you're going to win. You're going to win games. Especially against good teams. Especially against a team like Farnsworth Mercy they might have to see in the postseason. But we'll see. See what happens. All right, before I sign off here, keep an eye on the Roundball Classic. Of course, the recaps will be on the blog at SaginbyForty50 at blogspot.com. Also, top 23 will be out as well. Before I let everybody go, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. Have a safe New Year's. And I will see you all in 2025. God bless. God bless all. And I will see you all in 2025. God bless and God bless all. Happy New Year, OAA Nation. Stay strong, and let's look forward to a great 2025.